What are some of the things that you see that could go wrong in today's market with the coronavirus and all that good stuff?
Sure.
Do you think you could show up to a property and not have access to it, or show up to a property and there's coronavirus there and it's totally
it's not safe for you as the person?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What kind of issue do you think?
It's a great question. And we just did due diligence on a property recently or attempted to do due diligence, should I say, where we did show up and we were turned away. The residents wouldn't let us in. The company that owned the property was not keen on us walking through and as strangers, technically, exposing their tenants to unnecessary risk. So it is unique times. And we are working diligently with our attorneys on language and PSAs. And that's been a learning experience, not only for us, but for our legal team as well, because no one's ever dealt with this. And how do you phrase, certain states, they're like San Francisco right now, or California, I believe I saw they pretty much locked down the entire state.
Locked down everybody.
Yeah. And in South Carolina, where the property that we were trying to do due diligence on is located, basically the tenant's rights that they can refuse us entry, which is fine. And they have that right. And they should certainly execute that if they feel like it's, from a health standpoint, you got to take care of your family. But that said, from a due diligence standpoint, if we had even been able to do due diligence, the contract doesn't read the percentage amount of units that you can see. So say we go and just for easy math, say it's a 100-unit property and we go to do due diligence and 40 of the tenants won't let us in. Well, have we technically done due diligence at that point? Like, right. If we can't get in, like, do I want to risk my earnest money? What is that number that it's enough units that have gone in? Because we want to go in every unit.
That's 40% of the property that you didn't see, right?
Yeah, and even if it's one unit, and I know that sounds trivial, but that one unit that you don't go in, if you have a budget for interiors of $5,000 a door, and that one unit is just in shambles and it's going to take $12,000 or $13,000, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's stealing money from something else that you had budgeted. And not that we don't, we always bump up our reserves and bump up our CapEx budgets for the unknown, but you really it's important to get in and see as many units as you can. So to your question, there's just a lot of unknowns right now. And we've started inserting, we call it a doom and gloom clause, but it basically says if we're not able to get in, this is what happens. Like, we're still serious about the property. We still want to take down the property, but if we can't get in, it puts things on pause. And what does that look like?
I was going to ask, what if that doom and gloom clause is exercised, what does that look like?
So the way we have it written now, and it is still we are going back and forth and back
Isn't
and forth.
It's an experiment, right?
It's nuts. But it's so important to have the language right, both for the seller and the buyer. Our philosophy is, and I know everyone does things differently, but our philosophy is, when we find an asset that we want to purchase and acquire, we're not in the business of retrading unnecessarily, trying to hold the price down. When we find something, we submit our best price. And once we get it under contract, we have all intentions of taking it down and doing it the right way. We want to build that reputation of being the buyers that can execute. And so we're not looking to take advantage of situations or anything like that, but we want to make sure that we're covered. On a $10 million asset and you have $100,000 of your personal money at risk, that's a pretty hefty chunk of change. That's
not walkaway money.
Exactly right. So, it's really being, and fortunately everyone's being, we're bonding together as a community to try to deal with this on all fronts. And we've been fortunate that the sellers that we've been dealing with have been very reasonable. Unfortunately, brokers, with every aspect of this, if a broker would just put the seller and the buyer in the same room, we could get things done in 10 minutes, but we always have to have an intermediary because they have to earn their paycheck, which they do a great job. Man. It is what it is. It's transactional, right? So I get that. But I told my lawyer yesterday, I'm like, just put me on the phone with the seller and we can hammer out this language instead of going back and forth with an intermediary. But just make sure you're covering your tail. You're doing the right thing for your company and your investors, but make sure you protect yourself.